Yes, my name is Madison. I'm 35, and I never thought my financial expertise would be my downfall. I built a perfect life with Derek in Boston, carefully planning every dollar until I discovered that $50,000 charge. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, had stolen my credit card information to fund my sister-in-law's luxury European vacation. When I found out, I didn't scream or cry. I stayed silent. Not because I was weak, but because I was planning. Where are you watching from? Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever dealt with toxic in-laws, because this story will show you how strategic silence can be your greatest weapon. I grew up in a middle-class family in Chicago, where my parents taught me the value of hard work and financial responsibility from an early age. My dad worked as a high school teacher, and my mum was a nurse at the local hospital. We weren't poor, but we weren't wealthy either. I learned to save for what I wanted, to appreciate what I had, and to work hard for my future. That work ethic carried me through college, where I balanced a full course load with 2 part-time jobs. I graduated with a degree in finance and minimal student loans, something I was incredibly proud of. After college, I threw myself into building my career in financial advising. I was good at it too. I understood numbers, but more importantly, I understood people and how to help them build security for their futures. By the time I was 28, I had established myself as a rising star at one of Boston's premier financial firms. My life was on track, exactly how I'd planned it. The only thing missing was someone to share it with. I met Derek at a financial conference in New York. He was tall, with dark hair that always fell across his forehead in a way that made me want to brush it back. He had this confident smile that lit up his whole face. But what really attracted me was his mind. He was brilliant, thoughtful, and passionate about architecture. Derek worked for a prestigious architectural firm designing luxury homes and commercial spaces. We connected immediately over our shared love of clean lines and functional design, though in very different contexts. Where I saw beauty in balanced spreadsheets, he saw it in soaring ceilings and innovative space solutions. Our romance was a whirlwind. We spent our first dates exploring Boston's historic architecture, me learning to see the city through his eyes. He took me to art galleries and taught me to appreciate the beauty in design. I taught him about investment strategies and the satisfaction of watching your money grow. Within a year, Derek proposed on the rooftop garden of a building he had designed. It was perfect, and I was happier than I'd ever been. We married in a small ceremony with close friends and family. That was when I first met Derek's family properly. I'd encountered them briefly during our engagement, but our wedding weekend was my first real introduction to the world Derek came from, and it was a very different world indeed. Eleanor and William lived in a sprawling colonial home in one of Connecticut's most exclusive neighborhoods. Old money practically oozed from the perfectly maintained gardens and antique-filled rooms. Derek had told me his family was wealthy, but I hadn't quite grasped the magnitude until I stood in their foyer looking up at a chandelier that probably cost more than my annual salary. Eleanor was tall and slim, always impeccably dressed in designer clothes that somehow never looked ostentatious on her. She had a way of examining people with a slight tilt of her head, as though she was mentally cataloguing all their flaws. William was quieter, more affable, with Derek's same warm smile. He had made his fortune in commercial real estate development and seemed content to let Eleanor manage their social lives. From the beginning, I could sense Eleanor's reservation about me. She was unfailingly polite, but there was always an edge to her comments. "Oh, financial advising, how practical," she'd say, or "What a sensible dress you're wearing, Madison." Everything was a subtle reminder that I wasn't from their world. Then there was Bella, Derek's younger sister. If Eleanor was subtly condescending, Bella was openly entitled. 5 years younger than Derek, she had never held a real job. Instead, she flitted between expensive hobbies and social engagements, funded entirely by her parents. She was pretty in a polished, artificial way, with the kind of perfectly maintained appearance that comes from unlimited salon appointments and shopping budgets. Despite the clear class differences, I was determined to fit into Derek's family. I bought nicer clothes than I would normally allow myself. I studied wine so I could discuss vintages with William. I read up on the social charities Eleanor supported. I tried to find common ground with Bella through our shared love of travel, though her experiences of 5-star resorts and mine of budget-friendly adventures couldn't have been more different. Derek, to his credit, seemed oblivious to the tension. He loved his family, and he loved me, and he simply couldn't see that those two loves were increasingly at odds. After our honeymoon, we settled into married life in Boston. Derek continued his work at the architectural firm while I steadily climbed the ranks at my financial company. We were both doing well, but my career was advancing particularly quickly. 3 years into our marriage, I received a major promotion that made me the primary breadwinner in our household. I was proud of my success, and Derek celebrated it with me. We had always shared financial responsibilities with joint accounts for household expenses and separate accounts for personal spending. Derek was good with money, if a bit more liberal with his spending than I was comfortable with, but he respected my expertise in financial matters and generally followed my lead on our bigger financial decisions. When we decided to consolidate some of our accounts for simplicity, I added Derek as an authorized user on my premium credit card. It had an excellent rewards program and a high limit for emergencies. I explained to Derek that we should only use it for major purchases we'd discussed or genuine emergencies. He agreed readily. Around this same time, we bought our dream home, a beautiful brownstone in a historic Boston neighborhood. It stretched our budget to the limit, but I had calculated that with careful management, we could make it work while still building our savings. We had started talking about having children in the next year or two, and I wanted to ensure we had a financial cushion before taking that step. Everything was falling into place until a family dinner 6 months ago changed everything. We were at Eleanor and William's home for their monthly Sunday dinner, a tradition I had come to tolerate, if not enjoy. Bella was bubbling over with excitement about her desire to take a grand European tour. Paris, Rome, London. She sighed dreamily over her wine glass. I've been planning it forever. 3 weeks of pure luxury. That sounds expensive, I commented, trying to keep my tone neutral. Bella pouted prettily. That's the problem. I've priced it all out and it's just beyond my budget right now. I nearly choked on my wine at her use of the word budget, when I knew for a fact she lived entirely on her parents' generosity. But before I could say anything, Eleanor patted Bella's hand. Don't worry, darling. Family takes care of family, she said with a strange glance in my direction that made me inexplicably uncomfortable. At the time, I thought nothing more of it. I should have paid more attention to that look. I should have recognized the warning sign, but I didn't. And that was a mistake that would cost me $50,000 and nearly my marriage. It was a Tuesday morning like any other when my world turned upside down. I was at my desk at work taking a quick coffee break to review our personal finances as I did every week. Derek and I believed in staying on top of our accounts to avoid any surprises. Ironic, considering the surprise that was waiting for me. I logged into our credit card account and nearly spilled my coffee all over my keyboard. There it was, a single charge that made my heart stop. $50,000 to Lux World Travel Agency. At first I thought it had to be a mistake. There was no way either of us had authorized such an enormous charge. Derek and I consulted each other on any purchase over a few $100s, let alone one that could buy a luxury car. My financial advisor training kicked in and I immediately called the credit card company. After navigating the automated system and verifying my identity, I finally reached a representative. Yes, Mrs. Walker, I see the charge you're referring to, the customer service agent said calmly. It was processed 3 days ago. There must be some mistake, I insisted. Neither my husband nor I made this purchase. Let me check the details, she said. After a moment of typing, she continued. The transaction was done online using your card information. The correct CVV code was entered and the charge was sent to the email address on file. There were no fraud alerts triggered because the shipping address matched your home address. My stomach dropped. This wasn't random fraud. This was someone who had access to my complete card information, including the security code on the back. Someone who knew our home address and had access to our email. I'll send you the transaction details, the representative offered. I thanked her and ended the call, my mind racing. Within minutes, the email arrived. I opened it with trembling hands and saw the full receipt from Lux World Travel Agency. It detailed a comprehensive European vacation package, first-class flights to Paris, 5-star hotels in Paris, Rome and London, private tours of major attractions, and even a generous shopping allowance. The recipient name on the booking made me freeze. Isabella Walker, Derek's sister. As the reality of what I was seeing sank in, I frantically searched our shared email account. And there it was in the trash folder, the original booking confirmation for Bella's dream European vacation. The sender had attempted to delete it, but hadn't permanently removed it from the trash. I sat back in my chair, struggling to breathe as panic washed over me. This wasn't a mistake or a random fraud. Someone had deliberately used my credit card to book Bella's trip. But who Derek wouldn't do this without discussing it with me first, would he? I called the credit card company back this time, asking about disputing the charge. Since the transaction was authorized with your correct card information and security code, It's technically not fraud in the traditional sense, the representative explained. If someone in your household used the card without permission, that's considered a family dispute rather than fraud. In other words, I was on the hook for the full amount unless I wanted to file a police report against a family member. $50,000 that we didn't have to spare, not with our new mortgage and plans for starting a family. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I felt physically ill, a cold sweat breaking out across my forehead as my mind raced through the implications. This would wipe out our emergency fund. It would set back our plans for having a baby. It might even put our new home at risk if we couldn't make the payments. But beyond the financial impact was the devastating sense of betrayal. Someone close to us, someone we trusted, had done this. I needed proof. I pulled up the security app on my phone that connected to the cameras we'd installed when we bought our new home. Derek had thought I was being paranoid, but as a financial advisor, I'd seen too many break-ins and thefts to not take precautions. I scrolled back through the footage from the past week, focusing on the entry to our home office, where I kept my wallet when I wasn't using it. And there she was, Eleanor, Derek's mother, slipping into our office during their last visit 4 days ago. The memory came rushing back. Eleanor had asked to use the bathroom during dinner. The powder room was being repainted, so I directed her to use the master bathroom, which required passing the office. She'd been gone for nearly 15 minutes, which had seemed long but not suspicious at the time. The footage clearly showed Eleanor entering the office, going straight to my desk, opening my wallet, and taking out my credit card. She photographed both sides with her phone before carefully replacing it exactly as she'd found it. I felt sick. My own mother-in-law had stolen from me. The woman who had always looked down on me for not being good enough for her son had committed a crime that could send her to jail. I imagined confronting her, imagined the satisfaction of seeing her perfectly composed face crumble as I revealed that I knew what she'd done. I imagined calling the police, watching her be led away in handcuffs from her immaculate Connecticut mansion. But something stopped me, a small voice of caution in the back of my mind. If I confronted Eleanor now, she would have time to create a story to turn the situation around somehow. She might claim I had authorized the charge or that it was a misunderstanding. She might turn Derek against me. I needed more information, more evidence. Knowledge is power. As a financial advisor, I lived by that principle, and right now I had knowledge that Eleanor didn't know I possessed. That gave me power, and I wasn't going to relinquish it by acting rashly, so I made a decision that would change everything. I decided to stay silent. Not forever, but for now, long enough to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with and to prepare my response carefully. I wiped away my tears, straightened my shoulders, and began to formulate a plan. Eleanor had no idea what she had just unleashed. Unless, that evening, after the initial shock had subsided enough for me to think clearly, I began my investigation in earnest. As a financial advisor, I had resources and knowledge that most people lacked. I started by researching credit card fraud laws and family theft cases, taking careful notes on my personal laptop that Derek never used. What I discovered was both enlightening and disturbing. Credit card theft by family members fell into a grey area legally. It was clearly illegal, but many cases went unprosecuted because victims were reluctant to press charges against their own family. Those that did go to court often resulted in probation rather than jail time, especially for first offences by individuals with no prior criminal record. Eleanor could potentially face felony charges given the amount involved, but the reality was that she might get nothing more than a slap on the wrist. More importantly, pressing charges would irrevocably damage our family relationships. As much as I was furious with Eleanor, I had to consider what that would do to Derek, caught between his wife and his mother. I wasn't willing to make any decisions yet. First, I needed to know if this was an isolated incident or part of a pattern. The next day, I went home during lunch when I knew the house would be empty. I installed a small hidden camera in the office, angled to capture my desk and the filing cabinet where we kept important financial documents. I wasn't sure if Eleanor would return, but I wanted to be prepared if she did. Then I began a thorough audit of all our financial accounts. Credit card statements, bank accounts, investment portfolios, everything. I went back a full year, scrutinizing every transaction, flagging anything suspicious or unfamiliar. What I found made my blood run cold. The $50,000 charge wasn't the first unauthorized transaction. It was just the largest and most brazen. Over the past year, there had been numerous smaller charges that I had overlooked or dismissed at the time. $1,000 at a high-end department store, $800 for a spa day, $2,000 for a weekend getaway, $3,000 for jewelry. All told, Eleanor had charged approximately $15,000 to my card before the massive travel agency charge. The pattern was clear. She would make the purchases, then send a lavish gift to Derek or me a few days later, claiming it was just because I was thinking of you. We'd thank her for her generosity, never realizing we were the ones paying for our own gifts, plus additional items she kept for herself or gave to Bella. It was insidious and calculated. She had been testing boundaries, seeing what she could get away with. When I never questioned the charges, she grew bolder, culminating in the $50,000 theft for Bella's trip. As I pieced together this pattern of deception, other memories surfaced. Times when I'd mentioned to Derek that our credit card bill seemed higher than expected, only to have him dismiss my concerns. "We've been busier than usual," he'd say, or "Remember that dinner with my clients? That was expensive but worth it." There had been instances when cash seemed to disappear from my wallet, times when store bills were higher than I'd calculated. Each incident was small enough to dismiss as an error or oversight on my part, but together they formed a disturbing picture. The realization that this had been happening right under my nose for so long kept me awake at night. I lay beside Derek, listening to his peaceful breathing, wondering if he had any idea what his mother was doing. Was he complicit? Had he turned a blind eye? Or was he truly unaware? My trust in Derek was shaken, but not yet broken. He had always defended his mother when I raised concerns about her behavior toward me. "That's just how she is," he'd say. "She doesn't mean anything by it." But theft was beyond mere rudeness or snobbery. This was criminal. I needed professional advice, but I wasn't ready to expose the situation to our social circle. Instead, I contacted a law school friend who now practiced criminal law in another state. I presented the situation as a hypothetical case I was helping a client with, keeping all identities anonymous. "Your client has a strong case for criminal charges," my friend advised. "Credit card fraud over $10,000 is a felony in most states, but the family connection complicates things. If your client wants to preserve relationships, a civil demand for repayment might be better than criminal charges." This was valuable insight, but it still left me with the central question: what did I want to happen? Did I want Eleanor punished? Yes, part of me did. Did I want our money back? Absolutely. But did I want to destroy our family in the process? That was harder to answer. While I grappled with these questions, life went on. Bella posted pictures on social media of shopping sprees for her upcoming trip, tagging luxury brands and bragging about her amazing European adventure. Each post was like salt in my wound. Then came the text that confirmed Eleanor knew exactly what she had done. "Madison, darling," she wrote, "have you noticed any issues with your credit card recently? I heard from a friend that there have been some scams going around." My hands shook with anger as I read her message. The audacity, the sheer manipulative calculation of it was breathtaking. She was trying to plant the idea that the charge might be from an external scammer rather than her own theft. I composed and deleted 5 furious responses before settling on a carefully neutral reply. "Thanks for your concern, Eleanor. I keep a close eye on all our accounts. We haven't had any problems." Let her think I hadn't noticed, or that I believed the charge was legitimate. Let her think she was getting away with it, for now. 2 days later, Eleanor texted again to remind us about the monthly family dinner that Sunday. I wanted to refuse to create an excuse to avoid seeing her face, but strategic thinking prevailed. The dinner would be an opportunity to observe Eleanor and Bella, to gather more information and potentially more evidence. "We'll be there," I replied. "Looking forward to it." Before the dinner, I took additional precautions to protect our remaining assets. I froze our credit reports to prevent any new accounts from being opened in our names. I changed all our banking passwords. I moved some of our savings to an account in my name, only a temporary measure, until I decided how to proceed. I was preparing for war while pretending everything was normal. It was exhausting and lonely carrying this secret knowledge. But with each step I took to protect ourselves, I felt a little stronger, a little more in control. Eleanor had declared war with her theft. She just didn't know yet that I had started fighting back. Sunday arrived with a perfect blue sky that belied the storm brewing inside me. Derek and I drove to his parents' Connecticut mansion in near silence. I had been quiet all week, preoccupied with my investigation and planning. Derek had noticed my withdrawal, but attributed it to work stress. I hadn't corrected his assumption. The sprawling colonial home came into view as we rounded the curved driveway. White columns flanked the entrance windows, gleamed in the sunlight, and the manicured lawn stretched out like a green carpet. It all looked so perfect, so respectable. No one would guess that the elegant woman who lived here was a thief. "You're quiet today," Derek commented as he parked the car. I forced a smile. "Just tired. Big project at work." The lie tasted bitter, but I wasn't ready to confront the truth yet. Not until I had all my pieces in place. Eleanor opened the door before we could ring the bell, immaculate as always, in tailored slacks and a silk blouse that probably cost more than my entire outfit. She air-kissed my cheeks, her expensive perfume enveloping me. "Madison, darling, you look tired," she said with false concern. "Are you getting enough rest?" "I'm fine, Eleanor," I replied, keeping my tone pleasant through sheer force of will. "Just busy at work." "Well, we can't all have Derek's work-life balance, can we?" she said with a little laugh, linking her arm through her son's and leading him into the house. The slight was so typical I would normally have let it slide. Today it took everything I had not to respond with what I really wanted to say. No, some of us have to work for our money instead of stealing it. William greeted me warmly in the living room, offering me a glass of wine. I had always liked Derek's father. He was quieter than Eleanor, more genuine. I wondered how much he knew about his wife's activities. Bella arrived last, making her typical dramatic entrance. She was wearing new clothes. I recognized the designer label from her recent social media posts. The outfit had been purchased with my stolen money, and she was flaunting it right in front of me. "Bella, you look wonderful," Eleanor gushed. "That color is perfect on you." "Thanks, Mom. It was on sale," Bella replied with a wink that made my stomach turn. The outfit had cost nearly $1,000 according to the tagged post I'd seen. Some sale. Throughout dinner, I observed their interactions with new eyes. The way Eleanor controlled the conversation, subtly undermining any opinion that didn't align with hers. The way Bella deferred to her mother while maintaining her princess status. The way William and Derek seemed oblivious to the manipulation happening right in front of them. "So Bella," I said during a lull in conversation, "I hear you're planning a trip to Europe." Bella's eyes lit up. "Yes, I'm so excited. 3 weeks in Paris, Rome, and London, first class all the way." "That sounds expensive," I commented, watching her face carefully. Eleanor interjected before Bella could respond. "Bella has been saving for this trip for ages, haven't you, darling?" Saving on what income Bella had never held a job in her life. The blatant lie made me grip my wine glass so tightly I was afraid it might shatter. "And we believe in supporting dreams," Eleanor continued, raising her glass. "To generous family members who make dreams come true." The others raised their glasses, oblivious to the rage building inside me. They were toasting my theft, using my stolen money to congratulate themselves on their generosity. "Yes," Bella agreed. "I'm so grateful to the family for this opportunity." She didn't look at me as she said it, but the implication was clear. She knew where the money had come from. Derek smiled, completely unaware of what was really being said. "That's what family is for, right?" I excused myself to use the restroom, needing a moment alone to collect myself. In the hallway, Eleanor intercepted me. "Madison, a word," she said, guiding me into William's study with a hand on my arm. Once the door closed behind us, her demeanor changed. The warm smile disappeared, replaced by a cool assessment. "You've been quiet tonight," she observed. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I replied, keeping my face neutral. "Why wouldn't it be?" Eleanor studied me for a moment. "I thought perhaps you might have questions about certain financial matters." So she was going to acknowledge it. Part of me was surprised by her boldness. "What financial matters would those be?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Don't play naive, Madison. It doesn't suit you." She straightened a paperweight on William's desk. "The credit card charge." "Bella's trip. I assume you've seen it by now." "Yes," I admitted, seeing no point in denying it. "I've seen the $50,000 charge to my credit card." Eleanor nodded as if we were discussing something as mundane as the weather. "I knew you would. You're very thorough with your finances. It's one of your better qualities." "You stole from me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She waved a dismissive hand. "I borrowed your card information. For family. There's a difference." "A difference, Eleanor? What you did is a felony." "Don't be dramatic," she scoffed. "You make enough money to cover it. Your job pays you far too well for someone from your background anyway." The casual cruelty of her statement left me momentarily speechless. She continued before I could recover. "Family comes first, Madison. Always. Bella needed this trip, and as part of this family, you have a responsibility to contribute." "By having my card information stolen?" I asked incredulously. I would have asked directly, but you're so rigid about money, all those budgets and savings plans. She sighed as if my financial responsibility was an annoying personality quirk. Sometimes it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. This isn't about forgiveness, Eleanor. This is theft. Her expression hardened. Be very careful, Madison. Breaking up this family would devastate Derek. Is that what you want over money? There it was. The threat. She was counting on my love for Derek to keep me silent. You expect me to just accept that you stole $50,000 from us? I asked, keeping my voice low. I expect you to understand how family works, she replied. And perhaps work a little harder to make up the difference, since it concerns you so much. I felt my phone vibrating in my pocket. I had been recording this entire conversation, another piece of evidence to add to my growing collection. I need to get back to dinner, I said, not trusting myself to continue the conversation without revealing how much I already knew. Think about what I've said, Madison, Eleanor warned as I reached for the door. Some things are more important than money. I locked myself in the bathroom, hands shaking with rage. How dare she? How dare she steal from us, then lecture me about family priorities? How dare she threaten my marriage, as if she wasn't the one putting it at risk with her actions? For a moment, I considered marching back into the dining room and exposing everything right then and there. I imagined the satisfaction of watching Eleanor's perfect facade crumble, of seeing the recognition dawn on William's and Derek's faces. But no, that would be playing into her hands. An emotional outburst would make me look unstable, irrational. Eleanor would twist it, paint me as money-obsessed and family-averse. She would play the victim, the misunderstood mother-in-law, who had only wanted to help her daughter. I splashed cold water on my face and took several deep breaths. The game had changed. Eleanor had confirmed everything, had essentially admitted to the theft without a trace of remorse. More than that, she had revealed her contempt for me, her belief that she was entitled to take what was mine simply because I had worked hard to earn it. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about respect, boundaries, and my place in this family. Eleanor had drawn the battle lines. Now I needed to decide how I would fight this war. I returned to the dining room with a composed smile and participated in the remainder of dinner as if nothing had happened. Inside, though, my resolve had hardened. Eleanor thought she held all the power in this situation. She was about to discover how wrong she was. The Monday after that, revealing family dinner, I returned to work with renewed determination. The confrontation with Eleanor had changed everything. This wasn't just about recovering stolen money anymore. It was about establishing boundaries and demanding respect. My first action was to create a comprehensive spreadsheet documenting every fraudulent charge. I had the $50,000 travel agency payment, plus the $15,000 in smaller charges I'd identified during my audit. I included dates, vendors' amounts, and any corresponding gifts that had followed the charges. The pattern was undeniable when laid out this way. Eleanor had been systematically stealing from us for nearly a year, growing bolder with each successful theft. During my lunch break, I visited my bank and requested a meeting with a senior manager. I explained the situation in clinical terms, presenting the evidence I had gathered. I'm not ready to file fraud charges yet, I told her. But I want the bank to be aware of the situation. The manager was sympathetic but direct. Without a police report, we can't classify these as fraudulent transactions. However, we can help you secure your accounts going forward. We spent the next hour implementing additional security measures, new cards with different numbers, verbal passwords for phone transactions, and notifications for any charges over $500. It wasn't a solution to the existing theft, but it would prevent future unauthorized charges. Next, I contacted both a financial crimes attorney and a divorce lawyer. I wasn't sure which I would need more ultimately, but I wanted to understand my options. The financial crimes attorney confirmed what my law school friend had told me: Eleanor could face felony charges given the amount stolen. Family fraud cases are complicated, he warned. Courts often prefer restitution over incarceration, but with proper documentation, you have a strong case. The divorce lawyer was equally direct. If your husband was complicit in or aware of his mother's actions, that could constitute financial abuse. If he wasn't aware, you'll need to consider how he responds when the truth emerges. Will he support you or his mother? That was the question that kept me awake at night. Which side would Derek choose? He loved me, I knew that. But he had been raised to defer to his mother, to accept her controlling behavior as normal. Could our marriage survive this revelation? While I wasn't ready to make any irrevocable decisions, I took steps to protect myself. I opened a new bank account in my name only and transferred a reasonable portion of our savings into it. Not everything, but enough to give me financial independence if things went badly. I updated my beneficiary information on my retirement accounts and insurance policies. I secured copies of all important financial and personal documents. These were precautionary measures, not definitive actions. I hoped I wouldn't need them, but hope wasn't a strategy. Meanwhile, I continued gathering evidence. Eleanor texted me midweek with another thinly veiled reference to the credit card situation. Madison, have you resolved that little financial issue we discussed? I'd be happy to help if you're having trouble managing your accounts. The condescension was breathtaking. I saved the text without responding. The next day, I called Eleanor on my lunch break from a conference room at work using my personal phone to record the conversation legally in my state with one-party consent. Eleanor, I've been thinking about our conversation at dinner, I began. Yes, have you come to your senses about the card? She replied. I'm trying to understand exactly what happened, I said carefully. The $50,000 charge for Bella's trip appeared on my statement without my knowledge or authorization. As I explained, Madison family helps family. Bella needed this opportunity, and you and Derek have the means to provide it. But you took my card information from my wallet without asking. How is that helping family? Eleanor sighed as if I was being particularly dense. I knew you would say no if I asked directly. You're so rigid about these things. Sometimes mothers have to make executive decisions for the good of the family. Executive decisions, Eleanor. This wasn't your decision to make. It's our money. Well, technically, it's your money, isn't it? She said, her tone sharpening. You're the big earner in the household. Surely you can spare some for Derek's sister, unless you think your career is more important than family bonds. Every word was carefully calculated to manipulate, to make me question my own values. I ended the call shortly after having obtained what I needed, another recorded admission of her actions and her unapologetic attitude. That evening, I tested Derek's loyalty in the most subtle way I could devise. As we prepared dinner together, I brought up a news story I'd read. There was an interesting case in the news today, I said casually. A mother stole her daughter-in-law's identity to take out loans, over $60,000. Derek frowned as he chopped vegetables. That's awful. What happened to her? She was arrested for identity theft and fraud. I replied, watching his reaction carefully. Her daughter was devastated. The family fell apart. That's sad, Derek said, but also kind of extreme. Don't you think I mean family sometimes makes mistakes? There must have been a better way to handle it than involving the police. My heart sank at his response. Even in this hypothetical scenario, his instinct was to protect the family member who had committed the crime, not the victim. What about the daughter-in-law? I pressed. Doesn't she deserve justice? It was her credit that was ruined. Derek shrugged. Sure, but family is family. You work through problems together, not by calling the cops on each other. I changed the subject, but his words stayed with me. If this was his reaction to a stranger's story, how would he respond when he learned his own mother was the thief and his wife the victim? The final piece of my plan came together when I reached out to William Derek's father directly. I called his office and requested a private meeting emphasizing that it was a sensitive family matter. To my surprise, he agreed immediately, suggesting we meet the following afternoon at his office downtown. His willingness to meet without informing Eleanor gave me hope that he might be more reasonable than his wife. William's corner office overlooked the harbour, the furnishings understated, but clearly expensive. He greeted me with concern. Madison, this sounds serious. What's going on? I had brought a folder with printouts of all my evidence, the credit card statements, the security footage of Eleanor photographing my card, transcripts of our conversations and a timeline of events. I placed it on his desk but didn't open it yet. William, what I'm about to share will be shocking and painful. Before I begin, I want you to know that I'm coming to you because I respect you and because I want to find a solution that protects everyone involved as much as possible. His expression grew grave. You have my full attention. Over the next 20 minutes, I methodically presented the evidence. The initial $50,000 charge, the pattern of smaller thefts, Eleanor's admission and lack of remorse, her threats about my marriage. William's face went through a transformation as I spoke. Confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally a deep shame that made him look suddenly older. I had no idea. he said when I finished, his voice barely audible. I swear to you, Madison, I knew nothing about this. I believed him. The pain in his eyes was too raw to be feigned. Eleanor has... He hesitated, searching for words. Eleanor has done similar things before. Not to this extent, but there have been incidents with friends with her sister. I've always covered for her, made excuses, paid people back quietly. His admission stunned me. This wasn't an isolated incident or a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a pattern of behavior that William had been enabling for years. I'm so sorry, Madison, he continued. I'll repay everything immediately, of course, and I'll ensure it never happens again. It's not just about the money, William, I said gently. It's about respect and boundaries. Eleanor seems to think she's entitled to take whatever she wants from me because I wasn't born into wealth like your family. She has no remorse for what she did. In fact, she's threatened my marriage if I don't stay quiet. William removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. What do you want to do? Will you press charges? I haven't decided yet, I answered honestly. That depends partly on how this is handled by the family, including Derek. Derek doesn't know yet. I shook my head. I wanted to understand the full situation first, and frankly, I'm afraid of how he'll react. Will he stand by me, or will he defend his mother? William nodded slowly. A fair concern. Derek was raised to believe family loyalty comes first. But he loves you, Madison, deeply. Love sometimes isn't enough when family dynamics are involved, I said. What are you suggesting we do? William asked. I want a family meeting. You, me, Derek, Eleanor, and Bella. I want to present the evidence and give Eleanor a chance to take responsibility for her actions. I want full repayment of all stolen funds. I want Eleanor to get professional help for whatever issues drive this behavior. And I want clear boundaries established going forward. And if Eleanor refuses, then I'll have no choice but to pursue legal action and reconsider my marriage. I said the words painful but necessary. I won't be a victim or an ATM for this family, William. I deserve better. He was quiet for a long moment. You're right, he finally said. You do deserve better. And enabling Eleanor has only made her behavior worse over the years. He straightened in his chair. I'll arrange the family meeting, but Eleanor won't attend if she knows the purpose. We'll need to present it as something else. A family financial planning session, I suggested. Given your and Eleanor's age, it would make sense to discuss inheritance and estate planning with your children. William nodded. That could work. Eleanor would never miss a chance to discuss the family money. His attempt at a smile fell flat. Madison, for what it's worth, I've always respected you. Your work ethic, your intelligence, your devotion to Derek. Our family is fortunate to have you, even if Eleanor can't see that. His words were a small balm to my wounded spirit. At least one member of the family valued me. We spent the next hour planning the details of the family meeting scheduled for the following weekend at William's office. As I left, William promised his support regardless of how Eleanor reacted. This has gone on long enough, he said. It's time for accountability. I drove home feeling both lighter and heavier. I had an ally in William, which was more than I'd hoped for. But the hardest part was still ahead, revealing the truth to Derek and watching him choose between his wife and his mother. I spent the rest of the week preparing mentally and emotionally for the confrontation. I had individual therapy sessions to help process my feelings and develop coping strategies for the various possible outcomes. I spoke with my parents, sharing just enough for them to understand I was going through a difficult time without revealing the full situation. I also prepared practically meeting again with both attorneys to understand exactly what my options were if the family meeting didn't result in resolution. I rehearsed what I would say, anticipating Eleanor's potential responses and planning my counters. By the time the weekend arrived, I felt as ready as I could be for the battle ahead. Eleanor thought she knew me, thought she could manipulate and control me through my love for Derek. She was about to discover just how wrong she was. The morning of the family meeting dawned grey and rainy, fitting my mood perfectly. Derek and I drove to William's office in tense silence. He had been confused by his father's sudden call for a family financial discussion, but hadn't questioned it too deeply. Dad's getting older, he'd reasoned. He's probably thinking about the future. If only it were that simple. William had arranged for us to use his firm's largest conference room. The space was intimidating by design, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and a massive table that made conversations feel formal and significant. It was the perfect setting for what was about to unfold. Derek and I were the first to arrive. William greeted us with a grim nod, his usual warmth subdued by the knowledge of what was coming. He had set up a projector connected to a laptop, reinforcing the illusion that this was about estate planning. Bella arrived next, checking her phone constantly and seeming annoyed at being summoned on a Saturday morning. "This better not take all day," she complained. "I have brunch plans." Eleanor swept in, last impeccably dressed as always. She kissed William's cheek, then Derek's, giving me a cool nod. "Well, let's get on with it," she said, taking a seat at the table. "Though I don't see why these discussions couldn't wait for a more convenient time." William closed the door and moved to the head of the table. "Before we begin, I want to make it clear that what we discuss today stays in this room. This is a family matter that requires complete honesty and transparency." Eleanor frowned slightly. "William, you're being unnecessarily dramatic. It's just estate planning." "Actually," I said, standing up and moving to the laptop, "that's not why we're here." The confusion on Derek's and Bella's faces contrasted with the dawning realization on Eleanor's. She knew in that moment exactly what was happening. "Madison has something important to share with all of us." William continued, giving me an encouraging nod. I took a deep breath and launched into the presentation I had prepared. 2 weeks ago, I discovered an unauthorized charge on my credit card for $50,000. This charge was for a luxury European vacation for Bella. "Cuckoo-san." I clicked to the first slide showing the credit card statement with the charge highlighted. Derek's head snapped up in shock. "What? That can't be right," he stammered. "We don't have that kind of money to spare right now." "Exactly," I agreed. "We didn't authorize this charge. Someone used my card without permission." Bella's face had gone pale. Eleanor sat rigidly in her chair, her expression unreadable. I continued, methodically showing the booking confirmation, the details of the trip, the pattern of smaller unauthorized charges over the past year. With each slide, the evidence mounted undeniable and damning. Then came the security footage. The clear image of Eleanor entering our office, photographing my credit card, and replacing it in my wallet. The room went completely silent as the video played. "Mum," Derek's voice cracked with disbelief. "What is this? Tell me this isn't what it looks like." Eleanor's composure finally slipped. "It's not what you think," she said quickly. "I was helping. Madison is so tight with money and Bella needed this trip. I was going to pay it back." "With what money?" I asked. "You don't work, Eleanor. Where exactly was this repayment coming from?" William would have covered it. She insisted, looking to her husband for support. But William's face remained stony. "I knew nothing about this, Eleanor," he said firmly. "And if I had, I would never have approved." Next, I played the audio recordings of my conversations with Eleanor. Her admission of taking the card information, her dismissal of my concerns, her threat about my marriage. Derek's face transformed as he listened, shifting from confusion to hurt to anger. "Mum, how could you do this? How could you steal from us and then threaten Madison?" "I didn't steal." Eleanor's voice rose. "I borrowed. For family, something your wife clearly doesn't understand." Bella, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly erupted. "You're all overreacting. It's just money and we're family. Madison makes plenty at her fancy job. Why is she being so selfish about helping me with one little trip?" $50,000 is not one little trip, Bella," William said sharply. "It's theft, plain and simple, and apparently not the first time your mother has done something like this." The revelation that William knew about previous incidents seemed to stun Eleanor. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. I moved to the final slide, which outlined my terms: full repayment of all unauthorized charges, professional therapy for Eleanor to address her behavior, clear boundaries for the future, and a formal apology. If these terms aren't met, I concluded, I will have no choice but to file criminal charges for credit card fraud and identity theft. Given the amount involved, these would be felony charges. The threat of legal consequences finally penetrated Eleanor's denial. "You wouldn't dare," she whispered, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. "I don't want to," I acknowledged. "I would much prefer to resolve this privately as a family. But make no mistake, Eleanor, I will protect myself if necessary." Bella jumped up, tears streaming down her face. "This is ridiculous. You're tearing this family apart over money. How can you be so cold?" Derek, who had been silent for most of my presentation, finally spoke. "Bella, stop. Madison isn't the one who tore this family apart. Mom did that when she decided to steal from us." His words, firmly on my side, made my heart soar with relief, but Eleanor wasn't finished. "Derek," she said, her voice suddenly soft and vulnerable. "Surely you can see this is an overreaction. I made a mistake, yes, but Madison is threatening to send your mother to jail." Is that really the kind of woman you want to be married to? Someone who would criminalize a family matter. It was the moment of truth. Would Derek stand with me, or would he succumb to his mother's manipulation one last time? Derek looked at his mother for a long moment. The woman I married is honest, hardworking, and fair. She's giving you a chance to make this right without legal consequences, which is more than most people would do in her position. He moved to stand beside me. I'm with Madison on this, Mum. What you did was wrong, and you need to take responsibility for it. Eleanor's face crumpled as she realized her son had chosen his wife over her. It was likely the first time in his life he had defied her so directly. William took control of the meeting again. Here's what's going to happen. I will personally ensure that every dollar taken from Madison and Derek is repaid in full by the end of the next week. Eleanor will begin therapy with a psychologist specializing in compulsive behavior. Bella's trip is cancelled and she will start looking for a job to learn the value of earning her own money. That's not fair, Bella protested. Life isn't fair, Bella, William said firmly. It's time you learned that. Your mother and I have done you no favors by shielding you from reality. Eleanor sat in stunned silence, her perfect world crumbling around her. For the first time in our relationship, I felt a flicker of pity for her. Whatever drove her to such behavior, financial insecurity, the need for control, or simple entitlement, was clearly a deep-seated issue that had never been addressed. I want one more thing, I said. An apology, a real one that acknowledges the harm done. Eleanor looked at me with a mixture of resentment and defeat. For a moment I thought she would refuse. Then slowly she nodded. I'm sorry, she said, the words clearly unfamiliar and uncomfortable on her tongue. I should never have taken your card information or made those charges, and I shouldn't have threatened your marriage. The apology was stiff and forced, but it was a start. The meeting continued for another hour as we hammered out the details of repayment and future boundaries. By the end, we had a written agreement that everyone signed with William as witness. As we prepared to leave, Derek pulled me aside. I had no idea, he whispered, his face still showing the shock of the morning's revelations. I swear to you, Madison, I never suspected my mother would do something like this. I believe you, I assured him, and I did. Derek had been blind to his mother's manipulations, but not complicit in them. I'm so sorry, he continued, for not seeing the warning signs, for defending her, all those times you tried to tell me something wasn't right. I squeezed his hand. We have a lot to talk about, but not here, not now. The drive home was quiet, but less tense than the drive there. A heavy burden had been lifted from my shoulders, but new challenges lay ahead. Our marriage had survived the initial crisis, but rebuilding trust and establishing new family dynamics would take time and effort. Derek moved to the guest room that night, not as punishment, but as recognition that we needed space to process everything that had happened. It was the beginning of a difficult but necessary healing process for both of us. The months following the confrontation were challenging, but ultimately transformative for everyone involved. True to his word, William transferred the full amount of stolen funds, $65,000, in total back to our account within a week. The financial wound was healed quickly, but the emotional injuries would take much longer to mend. Derek and I entered a period of careful reconstruction. He moved back into our bedroom after 2 weeks, but there was a new carefulness between us, a recognition that something fundamental had been damaged. We started seeing a marriage counselor to help navigate the complex emotions stirred up by his mother's betrayal and its aftermath. In therapy, Derek confronted painful truths about his upbringing. I was raised to believe that family loyalty meant never questioning my mother, he explained during one session. Now I see that blind loyalty isn't love, it's enabling. For my part, I had to work through my anger and sense of violation, not just at Eleanor, but at a family system that had made her behavior possible. I feel like I was set up to fail, I admitted. No matter what I did, I was never going to be good enough because I wasn't born into their world. Our therapist helped us establish healthier boundaries and communication patterns. Derek learnt to recognize his mother's manipulative tactics. I learnt to express my needs more directly rather than silently seething. Slowly, session by session, we rebuilt our foundation on stronger, more honest ground. Meanwhile, Eleanor began her own therapeutic journey. Initially resistant, she attended sessions only because William insisted. But as weeks passed, something unexpected happened. The carefully constructed facade began to crack, revealing the insecure woman beneath the perfect exterior. During a family therapy session 3 months after the confrontation, Eleanor made a breakthrough. I've spent my entire life terrified of losing status, of not being good enough. she confessed, tears streaming down her face. My own mother taught me that appearance was everything, that weakness was unacceptable. I've been passing that poison down without even realizing it. It wasn't an excuse for her actions, but it was context that helped me begin to see her as a flawed human rather than a villain. Forgiveness wasn't immediate or easy, but it became possible to imagine. Bella's transformation was perhaps the most dramatic. The cancellation of her European dream trip had initially sent her into a fury of entitlement. But when William followed through on his promise to cut off her unlimited access to family funds, reality hit hard. With my encouragement, William helped Bella secure an entry-level position at a friend's marketing firm. Her first paycheck was a humbling experience. I had no idea taxes took so much, she complained, during a Sunday dinner now held at our home, rather than the in-laws' mansion. Welcome to the real world, I replied, but without malice. Watching Bella discover the value of earned money was oddly satisfying. Over time, Bella developed a newfound respect for work and financial independence. She still struggled with budgeting and often called me for advice, a surprising but welcome development in our previously cold relationship. William too changed in subtle but important ways. He became more assertive with Eleanor, refusing to enable her controlling behaviors. He made a point of showing appreciation for my career accomplishments, countering years of Eleanor's subtle digs about my professional ambitions. Our financial arrangements underwent a complete overhaul. Derek and I established separate personal accounts alongside a joint household account. We implemented a transparent budgeting system where all major expenses were discussed in advance. Derek took a more active role in managing our finances, educating himself on investments and retirement planning. I should have been paying attention all along, he acknowledged. I left everything to you because it was easier, but that wasn't fair or smart. 6 months after the confrontation, we received an unexpected email from Eleanor. Attached was information about a financial literacy program for women that she had endowed in my name at a local community college. I can never fully repair the damage I've done, she wrote. But perhaps some good can come from it if other women learn to protect and grow their financial resources. It was the most sincere apology she could offer, expressed not in words, but in actions that acknowledged the value of what I had built through hard work and discipline. Around the same time, Derek and I revisited our plans for starting a family. The crisis had delayed our timeline, but it had also strengthened our partnership in ways that made us more ready than ever for the challenges of parenthood. I want our children to understand both privilege and responsibility, Derek said as we discussed our future. I want them to know the value of money without being defined by it. On my 36th birthday, 7 months after discovering the fraudulent charge that had upended our lives, Eleanor hand-delivered a small wrapped package. Inside was a vintage brooch that had belonged to William's grandmother. This is traditionally given to the family's financial steward, Eleanor explained awkwardly. For generations, that was the eldest son or his wife, but you've proven yourself more capable than any of us. The gesture, imperfect but genuine, marked a turning point. Not forgiveness exactly, but a recognition of a new order, a new respect. As I reflect on this journey now, I realize that what began as a financial crime became the catalyst for profound growth. I found my voice and set boundaries that should have been established years earlier. Derek broke free from unhealthy family patterns. Eleanor confronted demons she had been running from her entire life. Even Bella discovered strength and capability she never knew she possessed. The healing isn't complete, and perhaps it never will be entirely. Trust once broken is never quite the same, but we are building something new from the fragments, something potentially stronger than what existed before. If you're facing your own family financial betrayal, remember this: your silence can be strategic, not weak. Gather your evidence, know your worth, and stand firm in your right to be treated with respect. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the ones most necessary for genuine love to flourish. Have you ever had to confront a family member over financial betrayal? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story helped you feel less alone in your own family struggles, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life lessons. Remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential for healthy relationships. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to protect yourself while still keeping your heart open to reconciliation when it's truly deserved.